let's go ahead and get started.
Mr. White, this evening we are joined by a group of very special people. These are our students who participated in the Special Olympics earlier in the year, and we were not able to bring them to one of our meetings before the end of the school year. And they have willingly come in this evening with their parents to first of all, allow us to congratulate them, but secondly, to lead us in the pledge. So, if it would be appropriate, I would like to call all of our Special Olympians up with their teachers, please, to the front. Come on up to the front. You always stand right here with your teachers behind you. That's it, all the way around. How precious. How are you today? Before we say the pledge, could some of the teachers introduce who our students are, please?
Sure. I'm Miss Guest. I have Dominique Taylor, Robert Cody, and tell them who you are. Sam Lewis.
I'm Trina Stiles, and I have Miss Hayla White, who came out with 3 medals.
Someone else. Could you introduce your students from the middle school?
All right, so this was my 8th grader, Emmy Jackson. She's just moved up to the high school level, so she's not going to be with me this year. I'm going to be on this year. And this is, she's a rising 7th grader. This is Willa Goodson. And she won, I think, a gold and a silver medal. So, yeah. Okay. And this is Connor Bowman. Connor won, I think, 2 gold medals this year, and he's a rising 8th grader. This will be his last year with me. And then we've got Jacob Jackson, and Jacob is a rising 8th grader as well. He won 2 silver medals. So he's a very good job.
Kim, would you introduce yours?
This is Eva Hagler, and she won a silver and a gold. And then you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Noel Griggs.
Do you remember?
I came in one in second place, forward first place.
Way to go, Noah.
Hello, my name is Isaac, and I won a gold and a silver.
So, yes, ma'am. And
I have one more of my students to come in. This is Jedi Roper. He didn't participate in the games, but he was there and cheered us on. He wasn't old enough.
so let's come around and introduce teachers also. And you do it because my brain is 60 years old.
I'm Donita Guest. I'm Terry Walkenstein.
Trina Stiles.
I'm Lee Hott.
Christy White, Rachel Payne.
Kim Holt.
And we want you to come tonight so that we can say congratulations to you. We are so proud of you and thank you for honoring us. Would you like to help us with the pledge tonight? Come on, let's put our hand over our heart. Right there's the flag. Are you ready? Let's go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can go home and continue your summer vacation. How's that sound?
Thank you.
cancel the rest of the meeting and go home.
Yeah.
That's the best part of the night, right there. Whenever you all are ready.
All right, let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, once again, we thank you for the opportunity to be in this setting, this school board meeting. We thank you for everyone that's represented here. We thank you for all the families. We thank you for our system, our district as a whole, faculty and staff, and all the leadership, God, from top to bottom. We thank you for the kids. Lord, we thank you for the students. What a vital part. We thank you that graduation went well and you blessed us through another year. Lord, we look for good things this summer. We look for good things starting in fall next year. And I ask that you'd be with us, lead, guide, and direct. Be with every decision that's made. We'll give you the honor and glory and praise for everything you do. We ask all these things in your precious holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I call the meeting to order. First item is approval of the agenda. If we have any additions.
Mr. McKinney, do you want to add anything to the agenda this evening?
Yes, I'd like to present a letter, or a memo that we'd like to send down to Raleigh, and I'll discuss that when the time comes.
So we want to add that to the discussion items?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Mr. White, that's the only addition, but I do want to make an explanation that we're going to be changing some procedures, hopefully, every week, and use the consent agenda. I have asked that we move all personnel items that would receive a unanimous vote or do not need open discussion in any way, any item that doesn't need open discussion, and typically whenever we're talking about personnel anyhow, that needs to be a closed session conversation as well. I've asked that we move those to the consent agenda. It is my intent that anything that would be in the consent agenda would be provided for all of the board 1 week in advance, which would mean it would need to come to you for approval. And then if the board, if any member determines that they would like to bring something out of that consent agenda, they can request that from you, or they can do so at the beginning of the meeting, and then you would move that into the appropriate place. School boards all around us use this procedure. It's a time-saving mechanism because it allows for us to get to the heart of business rather than to the routine matters. So tonight, personnel, with your all's approval, and also the minutes from the past 4 meetings. Yeah, I believe those are all the meetings in May, both closed and open, would be included in that.
And I think as part of one of my responsibilities is to ask at this time if anyone has anything that they wish, any board member have any item that they wish to remove or set aside from the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything? All right, first off, RL, can you hear me?
I can, Coach.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay. I think we're good with the
All
consent
right,
agenda.
then we will move that. That would be a voting matter later at the end of the session for tonight. If we want to move on from there, you're aware that there are multiple plans that we need to have in the school system. Dr. Sutton is required to provide a mental health plan for our school system as part of his duty. He was to bring that last month but was able to be here. So Dr. Sutton, if you would like to come and present your mental health plan, does this need approval or is just information only?
Information.
Thank you.
Yeah, our mental health plan was approved by the state, and I just wanted to give you an update on it. We met with social workers back in February to be prepared to present in May, and I had asked them to give me some updated data for this meeting, but May was our Mental Health Awareness Month also, so we thought it'd be a great opportunity. We partnered with Senior Age Solutions out of the hospital to do a little campaign about mental health awareness that month, and I think the day of the board meeting was we asked people to wear green that day, and we've got some pictures of students that participated and wore green for mental health awareness. But a mental health plan that stems out of 2 state laws, and it is for, the state board policy, the educational board is, it's SHIELT 003. It mandates that we have a school mental health plan that addresses universal promotion of mental, social, emotional health, and prevention. There's certain required training for employees. We've got to have a plan for core instruction. How are we providing instruction to all students in social and emotional health? We have an early intervention plan. What services are we providing? A referral, treatment, and reentry plan for students that end up maybe hospitalized or seeking that are need further clinical services outside the school setting. We have to have some MOUs with local agencies that support mental health. We have to have a suicide risk referral protocol. So if a student is talking about suicide, how do we respond? And then we try to incorporate stakeholder engagement in the development of this plan. The universal promotion, the things that we are required to teach students about are self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. Several of those things are taught through our health and PE curriculum. A lot of our health curriculum was focused on proper peer relations as they go through their schooling and their age. And then also it talks about positive decision-making is a huge standard in our health and PE curriculum. Others of these standards are taught through our Leader in Me. The Leader in Me is our primary core social and emotional learning tool. It is CASEL reviewed. CASEL is a national organization that is promoting school mental health. And some of their reviews have said that when implemented with fidelity, the Leader in Me reduces problem behaviors and promoted SEL across settings. That is one of the things we do is we teach the Leader in Me. The Leader in Me package gives us access to an online database of lessons to teach in the classroom. Our teachers have received some 7 Habits training. I think we may be pending one. Did we ever get the integrated academics training piece?
I believe that was started at the high school. I may be speaking out of turn on that, but we kind of were derailed by the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that where we got to is integrating this in everyday academics so that it's embedded in all core instruction and not just a separate lesson that teachers or that students are getting it either in leadership class or through the social workers and guidance counselors at the elementary schools. One of the big steps we took this year is having guidance counselors and social workers at the elementary schools teach a lesson a week to every class. I think that was a big step for multiple reasons. One, promoting social emotional health, but also extending teachers an opportunity to have a little bit more of a planning period. Some of the other practices that we started on last school year, last summer with our administration retreat, but we just sort of died throughout the year, was the 3 signature practices from CASEL, and those are a warm welcome and engaging content and optimistic closure. These are just daily routines that teachers can put in their classes to promote positive social and emotional health of students. Staff training, we have been using Vector Solutions for the past few years. That cost us $3,000 a year, but it provides the required 6 hours of training. So new employees have to have 6 hours of training. And then once you get that initial 6 hours, it's 2 hours every year, but it alternates years. In even years, it is based on social emotional learning of students. And then in the odd years, it's around sex trafficking. So 1 year it's mental health, and then the other year it's 2 hours around sex trafficking, sexual abuse of students. So staff are required to do that. Vector Solutions has been our means to do that. I'm very excited. After I met with the social workers and guidance counselors about this plan, we started talking about building our own library of professional development for teachers and going away from Vector Solutions. Mr. Sells is going to be able to use some of our ESSER money to have 3 of our social workers, guidance counselors come in this summer, and we're going to use our Google Classroom platform to go away from Vector Solutions and for them to create our own professional development plan. Now there are certain guidelines that are required from the state for us to meet, but I'm excited to have that moving forward. Vector Solutions was a nice, quick way to meet those PD needs, but it's not very engaging. It's videos and a simple quiz, and we thought that we could make that more engaging and more personalized to how we respond to going over our suicide prevention protocol and what things we can do and what areas we're seeing the needs in our students. Some of the data review that we used to drive our discussions with social workers and guidance counselors was around attendance and mental health. Attendance, according to our NC 2022 NC report card, 45.93% of Swain County students are chronically absent, compared to 31.18% of at the state level. And chronically absent is 10% of the school days, regardless if it's lawful and unlawful. Lawful absences are your medical notes, your dentist, and unlawful are the ones that students are just missing. Chronically absent does not differentiate. So it's students that miss 10% of the year, and for us that's about 17 days a year is 10%, because I think we finished this year with 174 student days. So approximately if you miss 17 days, you're considered chronically absent. It's a huge red flag for potential negative impacts on schooling. Absence. Actually, there's research that says if a student misses 6 or more days in a school year, that it can have negative impacts on their outcomes later on in their educational careers. I had some more data. Oh, here it is. The next thing we looked at is our suicide assessment screenings. And this year, we have seen an increase in assessments. In February, we had already completed 53 risk assessments. That's K-12. Of those 53, 22 were accepted by mobile crisis, and 11 of those resulted in hospitalization of students. I think everybody's aware that there's a mental health crisis. And our students are definitely experiencing that. And their mental health impacts their attendance, impacts their overall educational outcomes. And it's a huge concern for us. And some of the things that we're looking at doing across the way is, one, working on a screener for the county. One universal screener. Guidance counselors use questions. There's some limitations on surveys and what questions can and cannot be asked. So we're trying to ask questions that give us an insight. Do you have a friend at school? Do you have somebody at home that you can talk to? Just some broad questions that can help screen and maybe early identify students so that we can add resources and support to them. We're moving away from Vector Solutions to add a more personalized PD plan for our staff. So they can respond to students in crisis more effectively. Another part that we are addressing, and it's going to show up in our strategic planning, is attendance. The chronic absenteeism is a concern, and it's definitely something we need to address as a district with what we can influence and control. Some of that is outside of our control, but we can impact it and we can influence it. One of the things we use for attendance is mediation. Hyatt's out of Jackson County has taken over Mountain Mediation, and they've experienced some trouble as they've absorbed that and some turnover, like everybody's dealing with turnover. So continue to build our partnerships with Hyatt's. Truancy mediation happens at 6 days, 6 absences, and has been really effective in eliminating and reducing future absences when the school partners with mediation and partners with the family to look at possible solutions. That's been really effective. At one point in time when I was principal of the middle school with Connie, 100% of the people percent of the parents that participated in mediation, they did not progress to truancy counsel. So it was a huge impact at that point in time. So we're hoping to get that in all of our schools and get that up and running. Miss Sutton at the middle school continues to be very successful, and Hannah Clemmer out at East is picking up on hers, and it's been pretty successful at East this year also. When they turn 16 and get to the high school, it's a little bit different nature, and we've got to work through some of that. One of the next step we're also wanting to do is really embed the SEL practices in our daily academics, so that it's not an extra class, or it's not just our Leader in Me period or our WIN period, but it's embedded in everything that we do. And then growing MOAs with community partners. That's been tough. There's a lot of turnover in all of these agencies around us. And so you build a connection with somebody, and then lo and behold, they're gone, and you're starting back over building those MOAs, MOUs, so continuing to grow those. Is there any questions about our mental health plan?
That's surprising, the numbers that you gave. It's scary.
It is scary and it's heartbreaking, because that is not just 612 numbers. We have... there's more K-5 students, and that's tough, that students that young are having those kinds of thoughts. Yeah.
Any questions for Dr. Sutton? Thank you, Brandon, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are all aware that we've been working towards the development of a strategic plan for the school system. As a matter of fact, I've sat down with you kind of on a personal or individual level. We've gone through some of the questions that Dr. Sutton and Mr. Clapsaddle and some of the rest of us have gone through with the rest of the staff and some parents. This plan will be designed as guiding statements for the next 3 to 5 years for our school system. In these first steps, the Strategic Planning Committee from the central office has been gathering and analyzing all different types of data so that we can identify what our goals probably should be. Dr. Sutton just mentioned one that we really need to address. How can we help in attendance and encouraging students to come to school? Tonight, I want to share some of those data sources with you. We won't necessarily be sharing a lot of our goals, because we're still looking at the data and determining what the best line of attack would be in these areas. Our intent is to present to you a draft copy of the strategic plan in July, so that we can look at that. We may need to have, Mr. White, we may need to have a special session for that, along with a couple of other things, just as a work session. We'll talk about that later, okay? Tonight, Ms. Marr is going to go over the results from Leader in Me Measurable Results Assessment. After that, Tommy Dills is going to bring some highlights from the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey. I think it's important to note that the MRA, the Measurable Results Assessment, is very current. It was implemented or sent out in March of this year. The Teacher Working Conditions Survey is from last school year. The state only does that once every 2 years. Then Ms. Turberfield is going to go over some data from a facilitated assessment from MTS. It's called FAMS, and then Dr. Sutton will come back, and he's going to give you the outcome of the personal surveys that teachers, parents, and even you have shared with us. Our intent is to go quickly and give the information out. If you have questions, don't hesitate, okay? Ms. Marr.
The children are much more fun to watch up here. Thanks for having me. So when we started talking about strategic planning, it made perfect sense to look back at our Leader in Me Measurable Results Assessment. The MRA is a survey tool that is used annually to collect and analyze, report on student, staff, and school-level outcomes related to the Leader in Me. It's focused on leadership, culture, and academics. The data is collected from students, grades 3 and up, staff, and parents. I think we can go to the next slide there. And the next one. We had great response. 129 of our staff members responded, 334 of our students, and 321 families responded as well. The next slide. The data is reported using a 0 is used to measure strengths and to make focused decisions about areas that we'd like to grow. Overall, all of the responses were in the satisfactory, to effective ranges. It's important to note that these are school-level assessments, so there's not a district-level report. So we were just looking at each school to find strengths. They will dive deeper and develop their own plans, but as we were reporting from the district, we felt like it was an important tool for us to look at. So each school presented some unique strengths. Some of those included a strong sense of belonging, the staff has voice, empowered learners, and interpersonal effectiveness. There are some areas that we need to focus on, including trusting relationships and family engagement.
Questions for Ms. Marr about that data, or is there more that you would like to know?
Is there any study of, I guess I'd say income level, like Swain County has a higher number of lower income? Is there any correlation between some of those issues and that, some of those struggles and some of these details?
Go ahead, Jody,
Go ahead.
if you have an answer. We've been looking at some of the income, socioeconomic impacts on attendance for certain, and we are finding that as you move more towards a particular income levels or socioeconomic lives, that our attendance gets worse, and so we need to address that. Now, as far as some of the other areas, for example, some of the areas that Mr. Sutton, or Dr. Sutton was speaking about just a few minutes ago, I don't know that we have correlated those particular facts or those particular ideas. Brandon, have we come to any conclusions about that, or have we looked at that?
We have not looked at the referrals to media or to mobile crisis and economically disadvantaged, but with attendance, our chronically absent rate for students that are economically disadvantaged is higher than other subgroups.
There's also a testing subgroup for the EDS students, and they are generally lower performers than students who are not.
Mm-hmm. So I think that we can see that there probably is a correlation, but we maybe should dive deeper into that to see. Did that answer your question?
It did, you know. We get, I'm looking for words here, we get hit on that in test scores, and we get punished for our test scores of our kids, and we've got people delivering a super educational system, but we still get dinged on that sometimes in some of these schools. And this is an important thing that you're talking about, to try to find the solution. I don't know what the solution is. Part of it is more resources for us.
Well, one of the things that we are looking at, and we have been looking at, is the need to differentiate within the classroom according to the needs of the students. And as Ms. Turberfield speaks to the MTSS process, that is one area that we could look at and are looking at in helping students with greater effort. But that's something that we need to look at.
That's still hard to do.
It is hard to do, yes it is.
And it's protected information.
Yeah.
Yes. Anything else? Thank you, Jody. Mr. Dills, you have 3 minutes.
I'll make it.
Start your clockers.
Wait till you get this.
Oh, come on.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Or I got all this for you, but I know you can't see it.
We'll send, we'll send that to you. That was a late edition, I'm sorry.
Well, this is just something to help explain what I'm going to be going over right quick. The teacher work conditions survey, we had 100% response rate. It's all of our teachers and all the people who work for Swain County Schools get an opportunity to respond on several different things. What I just sent out to you and just gave you was a comparison sheet that tells us where we compare to the rest of the state based on each one of those subsets and subheadings. As Mr. Sell stated earlier, it's completed in March 2022. It will be completed again in March in this upcoming school year, 2024. Anybody that's interested in seeing the survey results, there is a website referred to on this slide, www.nctwcs.org, and you can look us up and search line by Swain, and it'll give you all the same things that I'm showing you here. The survey sections are time, facilities and resources, community support and involvement, managing student conduct, teacher leadership, school leadership, professional learning opportunities, instructional practices and supports, retention, equity, safety, new teacher supports, and principal supports. Those are the different things that there were questions or statements that you get an agreement key that is referred to on your sheet by color. Next slide, please. All right, as you see at the top of this one, the report key, green is great. It means that we're better, or we are equal to or better 70% of the people who respond to the teacher working condition survey if it's coded as green. The blue, 50%, we're better than 50% or equal to. The yellow is things we need to focus on and work on, or the orange, whichever way you want to look at that color, somewhere in the middle. But we're greater than or equal to 30%, and red means we're below 30%. We didn't have anything red. In terms of time, in the report key, we are 12 out of 12 areas, we're in the top half, and 9 out of 12 areas, we were in the top 30%. Facilities and resources, 16 of 16, we were in the top half, and 12 out of 16 were in the top 30%. Community support and involvement, 12 out of 12 we're in the top half, and 10 of 12 were in the top 30%. Managing student conduct, 11 out of 11 are in the top 30%. Teacher leadership, 12 out of 12 are all in the top half, and 10 of the 12 were in the top 30%. 26 out of 27, we're in the top 30% on school leadership. One area fell into yellow, that there is an atmosphere of trust and mutual respect within the district. Professional learning, 15 of 15, all are in the top half, and 10 of the 15 were in the top 30%. Instructional practices and supports, 18 of 22 are in the top half, and 18 of 22 are in the top 30%. Two areas fell into the yellow regarding homework, needing internet and or device to complete, and things like that. Those are available for you to view on the sheet that I handed you earlier. And retention of employees, 1 out of 2 are in the top half, and 1 out of 2 are in the top 30%. Equity, 13 out of 13 were in the top 30%. Safety, 32 out of 32 were in the top half, and 28 of the 32 were in the top 30%. New teacher support, 3 out of 3 are in the top 30%. So we're doing good things for our teachers. And in summary, overall, we have 85% of our employees completed the survey, felt like they were working in a safe environment with appropriate instructional materials, instructional time, and support. We naturally want that to be 100%. Our opportunities for improvement, which is the next slide, please. Opportunities for improvement are increased communication to promote transparency and trust with all of our stakeholders. One thing that we need to do a better job of is we need to market ourselves. For lack of a better term, we need to put it out there, what's happening, why it's happening, so that people understand what's going on and why we're making the decisions that we're making. And school leadership needs to be more visible in the schools. And when it says school leadership, I want to make sure that it's understood that that means school leadership as our central office staff.
Yes.
One thing that I myself have got to do a better job of is I've got to schedule it, because if I don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. Something always gets in the way. And I've got to start putting that in there as things that I'm going to do through the course of the week. And that's just one of the things that I know I need to improve on. And so we're taking these things to heart and we're trying to do better. Any questions?
Kind of bothered me, the one on respect, and that concerns me, because, we do shout outs trying to, and Mark's heard this before, too much. But that concerns me, because I know these board members here, and we have a tremendous amount of respect for our folks that work for us. And we see so much that this school does right. I mean, it slaps you in the face every day what's going on. And maybe that concerns me, because I want them to know how much respect they have. And I think it's more than they realize.
And I'll say this, and I don't remember what was going on in March of 2022 when we took this, but this is a snapshot really of one piece in one place in time. Any number of things could have been going on and can skew data when you get into things like respect. You don't know what the stories were in the news. You don't know what things were going on. What we've got to do is try to weed through that and make sure that there's alignment between all the different sections, because there's other places that it's like, oh yeah, we're treated with respect, we have what we need to be successful. And then you'll get one question where it'll come up different, and it's not necessarily always, doesn't necessarily make sense all the time. So I mean, some of this data is reliable in that 100% of our people said that, and this is the results we got. We've got to internalize it. And then, but we've got to be honest and reflective enough to say this is where we are, and this is what we can do moving forward to see if we can address those issues. We just got to own it. You know, we got to be accountable. We're asking people to be accountable, and we got to be accountable to these numbers when we get them.
Which is why we're sharing the data with you. We want you to see where we're coming from in our decision-making and our goal setting.
Well, that's good.
Anything? Thank you for your time. I was close to 3.
That was like 10. Just saying.
Respect.
Okay, next slide, please. So I want to talk to you about the FAMS. Good evening, by the way. The FAMS is the Facilitated Assessment of MTSS at the school level. There's also a FAMD, which is at the district level. And they are, these are assessments that the schools do for themselves. There's a team that comes together, and they are facilitated. So either myself or Dr. Sutton went to the schools and sat down and walked through this with them. And at the district level, we had a North Carolina DPI consultant that walked us through the assessment. And the questions are a little bit different, but the components are the same. And what we're looking at, MTSS is just the framework for making sure that kids are getting what they're getting. It's just what Mr. Sell was alluding to earlier, that differentiated instruction. So we look at data and we say, okay, are the kids getting this guaranteed viable curriculum that they're supposed to be getting? That's what we call core, that everybody's supposed to be getting. And if they're not, what are we going to do about it? What interventions, what extra help do we need to give them so that they can be proficient and so that they can grow? And what if they already have it? What do we do then to move them forward? And so, next slide, please. This is a great graphic here that shows you the different layers of support for MTSS. So at the bottom layer, we have differentiated core. Everybody gets this curriculum. And then the next layer of that is that supplemental support. So maybe I just need a little bit of help, just a little bit of extra instruction, but I'm still getting that core plus my little bit of help. And then maybe I need a whole lot of help, and then I would be in that top tier there, that intensive support. And it's all based on that data that we get, like from iReady and M-Class, and you've heard us talk about those programs, or EOGs, or just assessment in the classroom, whatever that we're using for data. Next slide, please. There are 6 components of MTSS: leadership, building capacity, communication and collaboration, problem-solving process, multi-tiers of instruction and intervention, and data evaluation. And the assessment, the FAMS looks at each component and asks certain questions, and then there's a rating scale. And so the team can rate themselves from a 0 to a 3, and then once all that is put in, they get a percentage of how well they're meeting those goals. And if you'll go to the next slide, please, Joe. And so I did the data in a couple of ways for you. These are bar graphs, and so each chunk of bars is one of the components, and then you can see the color is for each school and how they represented. And then go on to the next slide, please, Joe. And this is just the data in a chart. Just whichever way you prefer to look at it. This might be a little bit easier to look at. But you can see we're in lots of different places and lots of different percentages at different schools, and there's lots of reasons for that. At the elementary school and at the pre-K, MTSS is kind of just like, it's just always, we just kind of always done that. We just didn't really call it MTSS. But once you get to the high school and the middle school, it gets a little harder to go back and fill in reading skills for a child who is taking biology, because it's so content driven. And so the same thing happens at the middle school. And then at the district level, that's a brand new assessment that we've this was the first year we'd done it officially. We participated in the pilot, but this was the first year we'd done it officially. And so what we found as we were going through our section of it is there's lots of these pieces that we are probably pretty proficient at, but maybe we don't have it like written down, like this is what we do every time. And so that's where we've got to work, is to make sure that the protocols are in place so we know that when we're gone, somebody else is going to come in and it'll just keep rolling and they'll know exactly what to do. And so that's where we are. Any questions about that?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. Looking at this, so basically this is showing growth or proficiency for that school in each category?
Showing where they are right now.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes. At what level of percentage they're meeting those goals for MTSS. Yes.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I was gonna say, I think this is what my third grader, when you talk about the tiers, is that where?
Yes.
Okay, and I wanted to say that he ended up in a tier 3 earlier in the year, had me really nervous because I've never really had a hard time with any of mine. And so, but anyways, by the end of, long story short, by the end of the school year, he was absolutely exactly where he needed to be, on
Yes.
target. So I know that it's
That's why we do it.
clearly working,
Yes.
because it was able to meet him exactly where he needed. And so I really appreciate this, because as a parent, you're kind of going, well, I'm not really sure where I need to help, but you guys know exactly where
Yeah.
to target that.
And
And
just
it just,
pinpoint.
I mean, he did great. First EOG, I mean, he nailed it. Like, it was just very rewarding to see that. So I appreciate this.
Yes.
That's the whole purpose of the MTSS process, and it works very well, as Katrina was saying, especially at the earlier levels. It gets a little more difficult as you get into middle
Sure.
school, and it is much more difficult when you get into high school, largely because of our lack of formative assessment tools at the high school. We've tried some new ones this year and are encouraged by one, but not the other. There are just not a lot of
Yeah,
out
but
there.
catching it,
Catching it early
That's
is the
our
key.
yeah,
That
at
is
the
the key.
elementary level,
Yes.
then you're not, might not have to play catch-up.
That's
good.
right.
Yes, and I will just brag on our schools, because they probably are harder on themselves than I would have been, because they are really, really working hard to make sure they're meeting the needs of these children. Any other questions for me?
Dr. Sutton's going to come and talk about what we called this morning as we were reviewing this, the fun part. You will see the smile on his face, particularly as he hands out this copy.
Yeah, I was lucky getting to talk about the focus groups. Mr. Sell let me be a big part of those. And I had a great time facilitating these and working with people. So it was a lot of joy. Got to meet with parents and the different school levels. I think we split up the schools, and each of us got to participate in different ones. But I went to the middle school and to the high school and really enjoyed the conversations with those staff members. And then our parent conversations, we invited 12. We had 3 that showed up. And it probably paid off that only 3 showed up, because it was way longer than I anticipated amount of discussion. They were very open with us. We had a lot of discussion. But we set out wanting feedback from our stakeholders as we started developing our strategic plan. And we wanted to do these surveys, and we thought it'd be a good idea to sit down and ask very specific questions. And the goal of our questions were to develop our belief statements. What do we believe in Swain County? And we looked at a set of statements, or a set of questions that were just black and white. What do you believe in? What do you value most about education? And then we looked at some of these others that are more open-ended. If you'll go to the next slide, we thought it would be fun to have some of these broader discussions, scenario-type discussions, and that might provoke more thought and more feedback. So we had a list of questions for staff and a list of questions for parents. One of the big ones is there's been a lot of discussion about our best and then some. So what did that mean to different stakeholder groups? What is it that you want students to say about you and their time in your classroom at your retirement? What do you want them to say about your school when they come back for their 20-year reunion? How would you recruit a new teacher? Talking about the strengths and weaknesses of your school. And then the last question was a little bit of that black and white. What is going well, and what are things that we can improve? And I'm not really going to focus on those questions so much tonight, but about developing our belief statements. We interviewed those different stakeholder groups. I had all of their responses. I put them in one giant document. under the appropriate question heading, and then I cut them out, each statement individually. We sat down as a group, and we started placing the statements. What are some commonalities? Coding the statements is what we did. What are some commonalities? And we came up with 5 belief statements based on the results and the feedback from staff and parents and you board members. We believe in the future of our community. And some of the things that we took from that is some of the statements. The teachers took time to get to know me. They knew me as a person. That we offered a variety. I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Future of our community was a Mr. Sale. He really wanted that in there as one of our belief statements. So we added that one in. The next one is personal genius. That is a reflection of the leader in me, but some of the statements that led to us formulating that one is that the teacher took time to know me as a person. There's a lot of pride in the variety of programs we offer. And not only the variety, but the excellence of those programs. We're successful. Our students are successful in multiple places. Academics, athletics, History Day. I think we've got 3 kids in nationals right now.
Yes.
All of the CTE program, the Master Chef that they do and participate in, Skills USA, of course, athletics. We look at our track program. So the amount of programs that we offer and our success in those is a lot of pride for our community. So we put that under personal genius. We offer an opportunity for everybody to excel, from the arts to the thespian club to academics. Some of the other ones in there, she challenged me to be my best. She understood where I come from in my life situation. The next one we wanted to have is a high trust, loving culture. A lot of this is based off things people would say that we wanted a family atmosphere. And family means different things to people.
It's true.
For most of us, family is a very positive thing, but that is not true for everybody. So we wanted to reword that. You will see that some of our data says that we're lacking in some of that high trust relationship, so that we've got some work to do in that area. But some of the comments that we got there are that this was the best years of their life. They enjoyed their time, that it was a safe, caring, helpful environment. Some of the things from the staff, this was a huge comment to me. The staff, I think it came from a high school meeting. They were talking about, they understand our community dynamics, the budget constraints that the school system operates under. So for us to have trust, we've got to do the small things right. And I thought that said a lot to me about where our staff, they understand where we're coming from, and they are saying that if we do the small things right, that'll help us build that trust. Talked about being family-oriented and close-knit, and that we valued relationships. The next area was the development of the whole person. And again, that reflects back that we offer a variety of programs. Students would say that we cared about them as a person, not just a student. That we left them with the foundation and building blocks for adulthood. Staff wanted their students to remember the non-academic memories from school. So developing the whole person. We wanted individuals as leaders of their own learning. Some of these statements came back that our teachers felt the principals trust them as leaders and that they trust their expertise as teachers. SCS is heading in the right direction with the PLC process and data collection. The PLC process, teams of like kindergarten, first grade team come together. They look at their own data and they talk about as experts how they're going to intervene and support their students. So it's not somebody else coming in and telling them what to do, but they're making those decisions as the experts in the room. Provide them with the tools to be successful in the classroom and in the community. Emphasize academic success and growth. So individuals as leaders of the own learning, and that is a summarization of some of the statements that we put under that heading. And then everyone is a leader. Again, that goes back to principals trust in teachers and their expertise. A core belief by everyone that we as a school system can succeed and that we're going to succeed. That problem solving, that we're providing them with the correct coping skill, and that we're proactive thinkers. A lot of these belief statements have some overlap with the leader in me, some of the language. And some people argue about everyone as a leader, and that's a paradigm shift of saying that, you as a school board chair, yes, you are a leader. You as school board members are a leader, but to be a leader, that it says the leader in me teaches us that we're all in control of our own life. That it's what we take control of what we're doing. And that's what a leader and the leader in me is about. It's not just leadership positions, but it's that you're in control of yourself. The next thing, one of the questions, and I'm super excited about this part, it means a whole lot to me as a graduate of Swain County. I think our Best and Then Some motto has impacted my life tremendously. So there was a lot of talk about what our Best and Then Some meant, and it meant a variety of things. Some of the comments that we received is that it's 110% going above and beyond what it's asked. One of the statements is that we literally bend over backwards to do everything in a classroom. We have nothing left, and then some have nothing left of us after 3. Some people have never understood this motto. I know it's intended to mean that we do our best and then we put in more effort. However, don't think this is how it's taken, and it is so much pressure to do more than your best. Often students will joke, I am the and then some, implying that they are not the best, only that is only a few. And somebody responded, it's to find the weaknesses and opportunities to improve on them. And to me, that's what our best and then some means. Is I'm going to give you my very best today, but I'm going to learn from what I've done today. Whether that means I'm going to be stronger because of my time in the weight room, I'm going to be smarter because I'm making this presentation today. The next time I give it, I'll do better than that. So that's what it's always meant to me. And so we really wanted to hammer in on that and bring it back. We've had a lot of turnover, and when I came through high school, most of my high school teachers were Swain County natives, Swain County graduates, and that's not the case anymore. So there's not as big of a connection to it. So we've done some research and some debate, and it is Florence Posey came up with this motto in the 1959-60 school year as part of a competition to come up with the school motto. I reached out to her to ask her for an interview. She declined that, but was willing to write a letter. It is in front of you, documenting the history of our best and then some. And we're wanting to make this Mr. Sell may share some of this in a minute, so I won't take his thunder from him. But it was a school competition for a new motto. It was in Mr. Wackel's class, and he often told his class that you needed to do what was expected and then put a little more effort in to be successful. And so Miss Posey took that resonated with her, and so she wordsmithed it up a little bit. And she said for her, it means to work hard and to do the best that you can and keep trying to be a little bit better. And one of the things she said in here is, I taught for 35 years. I taught each student and helped them succeed. I graduated from 3 universities and have 6 degrees and was a nationally board certified teacher. I believe in the positive stating of goals, maintaining a positive attitude, and never clouding my brain with the possibility of a negative outcome. I am retired and I'm working on some positive goals now. So it's that continuous learning. It's that continuous improvement. There's a book that's been popular the past few years, The Growth Mindset. It is the growth mindset, but from 1959-60. It's that continue to improve and be a little bit better tomorrow than I was today. So that's been I've really enjoyed working through this and getting to participate in those stakeholder focus groups. Any questions about that?
And so our intent is to take all of the data that you just heard and some other and develop our goals. And you will hear that we're moving towards the growth mindset with greater strength and greater intent. Not that we haven't in the past, but obviously that's a way that we can go. I love what Florence Posey wrote at the end of that. She said, I'm retired, but I'm setting positive goals. Just because we retire, Mr. McKinney, doesn't mean that we can't set positive goals for tomorrow. All of us need to have that mindset, and we can teach that. So, if you have any questions or any thoughts?
Just wonder why Tommy was the only one told he could have 3 minutes.
Because we don't trust him.
And I went over.
Yes, you did.
Way over.
That's all right.
I'm going to watch a comment with HR.
Complaint department.
So I think us working on the strategic plan, at least as a group and also as a school system, is going to take us farther into the future with greater growth and achievement. And I'm excited about that. If we're ready to move forward, then, okay, Mr. Burrell is going to give us a 4-minute update on I like him better. He's going to give us a 4-minute update on the safety grant. You all are aware that every year we apply for a safety grant, and it's not uncommon for us to get significant amounts of money for that. However, there are some caveats that come along with that, including the fact that if the legislature doesn't act quickly, we still have a June 30th deadline for the implementation of that grant. And sometimes that puts us behind the 8 ball, okay? And so, Toby, talk to us about where we are, what we're doing.
Okay. I want to start out with a different hat on and tell Ms. Loftus how much we appreciate her gift bags to our bus drivers. They wanted to say thank you publicly, so thank you very much for that. It was greatly needed. And then I want to follow up safety-wise by saying that I'll be happy to talk about what I've got down here, but if you prefer, we'll go closed session to do that. It's totally up to y'all as to what you want out in the public and what you want to know yourselves. I will stay very general, and we can get more specific later on if you want to. It's totally up to you.
And the purpose of that is, one of the areas for closed session that you can always rely on is if we're talking about the safety needs and the goals of the safety plan or our safety in general, that really needs to not be a public conversation so that we can protect everyone that is involved. It's not that we're trying to be secretive necessarily, although in some ways we are. Everybody doesn't need to know everything that's going on as far as safety is concerned for our school system. So if you have specific questions, I would suggest that we use the time at the end of the meeting today for a closed session, and we can end that way. That's up to you all, though, if you intend to do that, okay?
Well, I'll give you a quick update on our current safety grant that we're in right now. As Mr. Sales said, I sat through a meeting today with the North Carolina Center for Safer Schools, and they are sticking to the June 30th deadline, which for us this time is not a problem. We will have all of our stuff in place and ready to go on June 30th. So we're good. To recap that for you, and again, I'm going to speak in general terms. If you want to get more specific later on, I'll be happy to with you. The exit doors at both elementary schools have been installed and are working. Video additions, camera-wise, at both elementary schools are in and in the process of coming online. That should happen by the end of June, if not before the start of next school year for sure. We also had a couple of updates at the high and middle school in areas where we thought we had some dark spots. Our walkie-talkie upgrade for the bus garage is set to begin work on Thursday, and it will be in place by June 30th as well. As I said, all of our work will be completed and our invoices paid by June 30 as required by the grant. So that's pretty much it for this cycle of safety grants. Do you have any questions about any of those things that we can talk about in open session? Okay, as I said, I sat through a webinar this morning with the Center for Safer Schools regarding safety grants. There are some things that you as a board need to know that came out of that. I briefed Mr. Sale earlier about it, but the 24-25 grant cycle is going to look a little different in terms of the SRO piece, which is very important to us. As you're well aware, we have an SRO at each school, and that's very important to our safety plan. The next SRO grant cycle, this current one, we're on a 2-year cycle, so we're good for 23 and 24. But the 24-25 grant cycle, as stated this morning by the Center for Safer Schools and DPI, is going to look different in that they're going to set the number of SROs for each district, and that's what they're going to pay for. Then we have to go and apply for the grant to pay for any additional that we would want. The example they gave, just using Buncombe County, and it's not accurate, it's just numbers they threw out. Let's say Buncombe County has 12 SROs employed. Well, the Center for Safer Schools may come back and say, we're going to pay for 8 of those. And that means that that board has to figure out how to pay for the others. The grant for the other 4 would be in a competitive nature. In other words, you'll be up against all the counties in the state as well as charter schools and trying to get those additional SRO funds. So we'll keep ears open and see where that leads down the road, but that's the way that they believe the SRO grant's going to be handled, which in some ways, as I told Mr. Sales, is a win for us because one of the things that we really wanted was that to become a recurring expense for the state assembly. rather than a competitive grant cycle, so that we know every year that we're going to get at least ever how many we get. So that, to me, that's a win in one way, and in another way it's not, because we're now going to have to compete if we need additionals. The equipment grant itself will remain the same for this coming year, and it will become available as soon as the General Assembly passes the budget and the governor signs it. The Center for Safer Schools is adamant about getting these grants out into our hands as quickly as possible so that we can get the application in and they can move as quickly as possible and get us funding. That's always been their mode of operation, is to get our funding into our hands as quick as we possibly can. So if we're getting that thing and they think it'll be sometime before November or November, then we shouldn't have any problem with the June 30th deadline, just like this time. So that looks good on our end. Wanted to update you on the fact that Mr. Dills and Brandon Burdett and myself did a walk around all of our campuses on the outside with a representative from Duke Power to begin the process of upgrading our exterior lights at all of our campuses. That's something that desperately needs to be done. And this should occur before the next school year, just so you know. We got that kicked off last week, but it's going to move rather fast, I believe. So we'll keep you updated on that as well. And the last thing I'd like to ask of you as a board is for you to participate with Mr. Sale and myself on a campus walkthrough of each of our campuses as we prepare for this next grant cycle, so that we can all sit down at a work session and develop our goals for what we want to spend that grant money on, what we want to go for, what's important to do next in terms of keeping our campuses safe. So, Mr. Chairman, if there's a time that you guys can come up, it doesn't have to be during the day, it could be in the evening for that matter, but we'd like to at least walk through some of the campuses, if not all, to get a better idea of what that is, so you guys can see what we have in place and what things might add to our safety plan as a whole.
So we'll, Mr. White, if we can, we'll work on a date for that, and we'll decide how much time can be allotted out of your schedules. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be on a single day, it could be multiple days.
Yeah.
Because when you're walking through these campuses, it takes a little bit of time. But that's the second part of what I gave to you all back in the spring as far as our safety plan is concerned. You need to be invested in what we are targeting so that we can act appropriately and provide input into the grant process as well. Okay? So we need to talk about that and see what we can come up with.
And honestly, my intent with those is not to take up a bunch of time, but I would like for you to see the setup and what actually happens when we were to go into a lockdown and things of that nature inside the building itself, so you get a better feel for what would be relevant next in being able to better protect our students and our faculties.
Mr. Burrell, we have 4 SROs right now, is that right?
We have 5.
5, okay.
Yeah.
The pre.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we
Pre-K?
had 4. One has come back to us.
Yeah.
And we are sharing him with the
Mountain Discovery.
Mountain Discovery, yes.
Okay, so that is something, as of right now, before this 24-25 cycle, that the state has allotted the 5? Is that how that works? No.
No. Ms. Treadway, would you speak to how SROs are funded at the moment, please?
So currently we have 3 that are funded. They only fund elementary and middle schools. They don't, the SRO for high school, we pay that directly to the county. We do get some at-risk money for an SRO, so we can use that too if we want to pay for the high school. And so we're funded right now through the safety grant for 3.
So if the state was determining it to the district, I mean, you would want to assume that they would at least do 1 per school, right?
You would want to assume that.
But you know what assumptions generally
Yeah.
do. That's what Jody's smiling about out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, and a lot of that will depend upon if this decision that you're talking about is left up to the Center for Safer Schools.
Yes.
Or the General Assembly.
Yes.
And that will be a big if. What I have found over the years since the Center for Safer Schools has been formed is this number 1 priority is the safety of the students of North Carolina. And whatever it takes to do that, they're for it. This money that they get from the General Assembly, they want it spent, every dime of it, on safety. So I would like to think that moving forward, our set number is 3, then we're good to go. You know, that's what it is now, so it'd be perfect, but we won't know that for a while.
You'd think that they would allow for one each campus,
You would think.
you would think, but
You would think that they would fund one for the high school, but they never have.
that's
Yeah.
really odd.
Not out of the safety grant.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
But does it fully fund that position?
Can't remember the exact dollar amount that they allot for that.
Okay,
I
All right.
don't think it's as much as the safety grant is
Yeah.
allotting now, because they increased it.
okay. You have any questions for Ms.
Anything
Burrow?
else?
So when we get to the end, if y'all have more questions or you want to have more detailed discussions about this, we can go to closed session.
I think that if we're gonna be scheduling walkthroughs with what we got in the spring, I don't know that there'd be a need for a closed session tonight. If we have any of those things, we can bring them up at any of the walkthroughs that we have.
Okay, all right. That good? All right. Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you, Toby. Ms. Treadway has several, oh, I'm sorry, no. Ms. Sneed is going to talk to us about the CTE, and she has 3.5 minutes.
That's the handouts, and I don't know if you already have these or not.
That gives you 2 extra minutes for handouts.
Good evening. So the first one that I want to talk about is the maroon one that's color-coded. And what I think you've been given, Mr. White, is the sign-off document for the local application for CTE. And I believe Mr. Sells shared with you directions on how you could access the full plan, but I've put the highlights here in this color-coded chart so you can see how CTE is measured. We're measured by 8 performance indicators, and I listed the description there on when this is reported and what grade level. And as you can see on this document, the data is from 2020-21 and then 21-22 school year. And in the right column, the actual column here, we are in green and yellow, which are good. Yellow means we are meeting 90% of the benchmark, and green means we're meeting the benchmark. So the red are the 2 indicators that we are working on, and we have been in red for just 1 year in non-traditional program enrollment, which is not anything we're extremely worried with because this will fluctuate from year to year. And basically this looks at the CTE concentrators and the gender that is associated by the federal government to these pathways. So for instance, welding, we look to get girls enrolled in welding to increase our non-trad numbers. When you're recruiting students in high school, we don't necessarily try to recruit non-trad because we're recruiting whoever's interested in the program. So that's not something we really focus on, but we do think that will come up. Now, the other one that we've been in red in, and this is the 2nd year, is academic proficiency in science. So we will be working on that, and that is measured by students who are completers at the end of their junior year and those that have taken the biology EOC. So one of our things in our plan is to work with the science department and look at their curriculum and ways that CTE can tie in and help with the science curriculum, because essentially most of our students have concentrated in a pathway by the time they're a senior, so their junior year. So we do want to enrich our offerings with more science curriculum, and we're hoping that that will increase our numbers. What I want to point out that I'm excited about on the bottom portion is I included the affinity high flyers, and affinity are likewise schools. So this is not your socioeconomic status. This is schools that are like you across the state. And in 3 indicators, we are in the top 5 for your affinity groups, and that's across the state again. In the western region, we are in the green in 2 categories. And I do have one miscolored, that on the state high flyers, the last one should be in white, shouldn't be in green. But I do want to say that the 5S1 category, Swain County is second in the whole state for credential attainment of all schools. And that is a huge accomplishment. And I definitely think that's something that if anybody watched graduation as the students stood up, that's huge, because that was all credentials that students have earned while they've been in CTE classes. And that's just the reportable ones I want to point out. There are certain credentials that we are not reportable, such as a 10-hour OSHA that we offer in drafting 1 and drafting 2. And that's not something that the state even compiles, and all of our students get that credential. That's not counting credentials that students earn in welding, carpentry, and automotive, because those are dual enrolled classes. And while the state is working on ways to count those in our numbers, we still are credentialing students. We had a student for the first time this year do the 30-hour OSHA class in carpentry. So those are huge accomplishments for our students and our teachers. And I do think that the credential numbers will continue to grow across the state because of the amount of funding that's being put out there for credentials for students. But I also think we will continue to grow as well. So that was really exciting. And that brings me to the white sheet. And this is just the things that have happened over the year, our successes, our brags, and a lot of this stuff you guys probably have heard about either at board meetings or on social media or at the school. But we placed 3rd in junior chef state competition, and those students received scholarship dollars for that. We had 22 students that competed at Skills USA, and we had 2 state winners and several other state placements, first or second, third, fourth. We had several teams that placed. For our health science students that participate in the blood drive, Swain County High School is 2nd ranked from Boone to Murphy as far as blood donations. And Graham County beat us, but we're coming back.
This year.
That's right, this year.
This year.
This year. We have started doing career plans in the middle school with Mr. Lighthouser, and that's been something new this year, and I think that's going to continue to grow. Also at the middle school, we are an Amazon training partner, which gives us access to free content and curriculum for our computer science classes. And we attended a computer science showcase, and some of our students presented, and they were actually received some funding to help with their classes. And that, so we were excited about that for Mr. Cook and his students. FFA will be traveling in a couple of weeks to state competition, and we have 3 teams competing. We have new additions to the barn. I think everybody's heard about the emus, and we have some additional goats. Completion of the greenhouse, we were really excited about that, and we had our annual greenhouse sale. We purchased the CTE truck and enclosed trailer for mainly use with carpentry and ag, and that's been a great addition. We're in the process of finishing permanent welding booths at the welding shop. We've had temporary booths up for the last 5 years, I'd have to think, 5 years.
Probably more than that.
So we're doing actual cement block welding booths, and we have quite a bit of new welding equipment that we just purchased, and we're excited to get all that hooked up. We hired a new marketing teacher last month. Becca Wiggins will be back with us. We're really excited about that. We have 9 summer camps in June and July, and they started today. 3 of those started today, and we have around 20 students that came today. We expect a few more to come tomorrow that had missed. And then just again on the credentials, we have so many students credentialing in Adobe, AutoCAD, ServSafe, eFood Handler, OSHA, First Aid, AED, Stop the Bleed, CPR, CNA, Farm Tech, and these skills are, these credentials are skills that they can take out in the community and get jobs. So we're really excited about the direction that CTE is going. And do you guys have any questions?
I don't have a question, but you don't know this, but a few weekends ago, I was with a group of high schoolers, probably 6 or 7 of them, and in the course of conversation, I asked them what they thought one great thing that Swain County High School had to offer, like what was one thing that they loved, and while not all of them are in CTE programs, they unanimously said CTE.
Yeah.
They thought that was the greatest thing that Swain County had, and so you guys are doing something right, because that's coming from teenagers. That's cool.
That's great to hear. We are trying to grow our student clubs this year. with our CTSOs. We have a lot of students involved in that, and we're hoping to branch out into the middle school and do some CTSO stuff maybe.
I don't have a question, but I've got a statement. This lady is part of the reason for this.
Oh, sure.
I'm telling you, from the time she, guidance, when she left guidance, I was kind of down and out because she did such a good job there, but we owe a lot of gratitude to her. I mean, she does everything with such a positive note about her. I just love to be around her. She's always smiling, she's always positive, and it's paying off. And it's going to continue paying off.
Don't
So
don't
you
brag on
quit.
her anymore.
Yeah.
Don't brag on her anymore, please.
No, I'm not through. I'll keep going longer. She knows that. She's a good one.
I think my 3 minutes are up. Did good.
You went over. Just saying. All right, Mr. Edway, you can have as much time as you want.
Always the favorite.
Middle child.
I was like, how can I do this in 3 minutes? Okay, I think the first thing on, good evening. Thank you for having me. First thing on the agenda was the continuing budget resolution. That's for the new fiscal year for 23-24. And we're asking that you authorize an interim appropriation based on 22-23 budget levels in order for us to be able to pay salaries and usual ordinary expenses until we do get a 23-24 budget. I'm hoping that the state will get a budget and then we'll be able to get ours done. Any questions about that? Okay. Second would be the insurance contracts. And part of the reason I come to you tonight is because we do have to get a signature from the board chair on all of our participation agreements. We have our insurance through the North Carolina School Board Trust for our errors and omissions, our general liability, our auto liability and physical damage, and also our workers' compensation. The School Board Trust covers 67 districts throughout the state. One thing about the School Board Trust is it's not your typical commercial insurance liability insurance, so therefore it protects the school board's immunity. And we've been using them for several years now, and we enjoy working with them, and the premiums seem to be very reasonable. You do have a copy of the participation agreement as well as the invoices for those, if you have any questions about those.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I just had a question on the cyber breach, the cyber liability insurance.
Yep.
Is there not a standard market that will cover that?
This is the one that the School Board Trust has referred us out to. It's the agency is Victor Insurance, and they do get quotes from multiple companies and carriers, and this is the carrier Berkeley that we've gone with in the past. So.
Have we checked with any standard carriers for that? That would be less expensive?
We have not. Our premium actually started out I guess when we first got cyber liability insurance, I can't remember if we've had it probably 3 years now, started out at like $5,000, and now it has gone up to $15,000. And I think that's because of the risk involved with that market. I'm happy to check with other carriers.
Could we check with other carriers just to see if there's a standard company that would cover that? I know Lloyd's is higher than just about anybody.
Right. Okay. I can do that. So to that, that is the other one on my list here is that we do typically get cyber liability insurance through Victor Insurance. And that premium is $15,254. It's pretty extensive underwriting for that insurance. And Karen Cook has made, and her team has made several improvements so that we can get the broadest coverage that they have available and not be limited in our coverages. So I'm happy to check on that, RL. I hope that I have time to do that. Most of our policies, we have to have those back into the carriers, but I'll still check on it if you want me to.
What kind of a time limit do we have on that? Do you know off the top of your head? I mean,
Well, 3 weeks, I mean, but.
okay. Till the end of
we
the
put
end
in
of the
our
budget year?
application. Huh?
Until the end of the budget year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It's effective July 1.
Okay.
So, okay. Any other questions about the insurance coverages?
I'm assuming this is all local funded. Is that right?
That is correct.
It's going up every year.
It's, other than our workers' comp has gone up, each year, but that's because of the salaries increasing and as well as our, experience modification increasing. So, just because we've had claims based on our claims history, but
Okay.
most of our premiums have stayed pretty level. The next thing, if anybody has any other questions about the insurance. The copier lease, we have had our copiers leased through Sharp. We did a RFP back in 2017-18 and went out for bid, wound up getting a very competitive offer from Sharp. We've had very good service and relationship. The equipment has served us well. And so we asked the attorneys if we have to put that back out for request for proposal. And since it is a true lease and it's really a service, we don't have any type of buyout at the end of the lease. It's just that we use their equipment and at the end of the term, we turn the equipment back in and then we start a new lease. So we did not have to go back out for bid. And they have come back with a very good quote. Our rates did not increase that much. The monthly payment is going to be $2,425.95. Our current monthly payment is $2,389. What they're also doing for us, because we want to get the equipment in as early as possible, they're going to forego the first 3 months of the lease because our other lease will still be in place until the end of September, so they'll forego those first 3 payments. So we're basically going to be paying 57 payments for a 5-year term. So, they also do provide the maintenance. The maintenance is provided under a separate agreement, and that's just based on the cost of per copy for both color and black and white. The contracts have all been reviewed by the attorney, and their red line changes have been sent to their attorney, and they're reviewing it. And so we would just ask that you approve the lease conditional upon the final copies being received back and us negotiating those final terms. Any questions about that? The final thing for tonight for me is the budget amendments. For State Public School Fund, we have an overall increase with this budget amendment of $12,000. We received $4,702 for reading camp. We also received an additional allotment of $2,279 for literacy. And then we received a fuel contingency. This is our second fuel contingency of $5,487. And then this amendment does also include what we call ABC transfer. We had additional funds in at-risk that we have transferred to transportation to cover the increased cost in transportation for this year. That's kind of typical. We usually wind up transferring money to help cover the shortage in transportation. The other budget amendments were just reallocations between purpose codes. For our local current expense fund, it went up with this budget amendment $2,000. We had to increase our allotment for charter schools by $6,143. We also budgeted for our small projects team. We are also covering, submitting our invoices for the supplies that are needed for the small projects for Article 46. And that was $20,000. And then I had to do a budget amendment to adjust the allotment for the reading TAs, just because of what we had put in the budget originally, and then we were allotted for 4 reading TAs. So I decreased that by $22,000. For federal, most of those, it did increase $14,094 overall, but most of the changes for those budget amendments are just reallocation by purpose code and trying to get my final budget amendments in for federal, just because it takes a while for them to approve them and send them back. Finally, for special revenue, the budget amendments resulted in an increase of $13,000 in the budget for special revenue. We had to budget some carryover from some grant money that we received from DHHS last year that they authorized us to use for this year, so that was an increase. And then budgeted some carryover for Gear Up, and then also increased the maintenance budget by $50,000 just to cover all the expenses that we've had just to keep all of our maintenance items up to date, and that's about it. Any questions about that?
How much did you say we had to give to the charter school?
Overall, it's right at $60,000. We increased it by $6,400.
Does Macon and Jackson give money to that too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It just goes based on the number of students that attend there, that reside in your county.
Now, is that out of our budget, or is that?
It's out of our local current expense budget. So whatever the county appropriates for us, then we give them a proportionate share based on the average daily membership.
Okay. That's the way the law is set up.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Any questions?
That's all I have. All right, thank you all.
We have, I'm out of order. Public comment.
Do we have any public comment? No public comment.
Board shout outs, Mr. White.
All right. I guess we'll start, if everybody got one, we'll start over here with Mr. McKinney.
Oh.
We'll just go around.
I don't see them here tonight. I want to shout out Neil and Sonia Blankenship. For one, they headed up this little fundraiser they had about a week and a half ago, maybe, something like close to that, for the rings, and they put a lot of time and effort in on it. They had some help, but they primarily headed that thing up and put it together. But and the shout out extends also to, I've known these two for years. I actually coached Sonia for a year before I got out of coaching, and then I hired her to high school, and she's never let me down on that, and she does a tremendous job up there. There's a lot of things going on up there, as was shown last Saturday. That was a beautiful graduation, and that takes a lot of time and effort. And there again, who did I see out there that's run his legs off was Neil, and other staff members that were there, didn't have to be there to put that thing together for Swain County. It was beautiful. And one of the things I like to say about Neil, I've been around him a long time, and I've helped paint that football field for, he used to help me back a long time, for 14 or 15 years, I guess. And I never could get used to Neil never slowing down. And that's the one thing I used to fuss at him about. You can go pass out one of these days on the sideline somewhere. Working's hard. That man puts in 50, 60 hours a week, I know. And he's well respected in the state, so I wanted to shout those two out because they do so much for this county and have done so much. And I know they're nearing their end of their time, the retirement time, but I just appreciate what they do for our county.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, so I reached out to Miss Sutton at East Elementary and asked who she would love to give a shout out to. And so she said definitely her custodians. They have already begun the task of deep cleaning and waxing for the summer. They spent countless hours doing backbreaking work to ensure our school is clean and looking its best when kids get back. And they absolutely deserve this moment that they get. So we really appreciate them. She really appreciates them. And that's probably one of those things that sort of goes unnoticed a lot, but is a big deal, So we really appreciate them.
I had a shout out for West Elementary and reached out to the principal there, Ms. Sutton, and she would like to give a shout out to Julie Bennett Ms. Bennett came to West Elementary as a teacher's assistant after having a break from teaching high school math. She had no interest at that point to continue teaching at all. She did help with the EC as assistant in the upper grades. However, I believe as the year progressed that they had a kindergarten vacancy. And after being a high school teacher, Ms. Bennett accepted the challenge of teaching kindergarten, which I can imagine that's a pretty big challenge going from teenagers to the youngest.
There's not that big a difference.
It probably stays the same. But she did so willingly. With the great help of the kindergarten team and Misty Tisatuski as the TA, they finished the year strong. Ms. Bennett fell in love with the kindergarten, but now Ms. Sutton's need was in the 5th grade. Ms. Bennett has willingly accepted the challenge to go and teach 5th grade. So I guess she went all the way down, and now she's going about halfway back. But her flexibility in meeting the needs of the school and the students is wonderful. She is the perfect definition of a team player. She's doing what is needed for the principal there and for the students. They're very thankful for her and the support of the kindergarten team gave her during that time. So that's what it means. I guess it's our best and then some, as we talked about before. To do what's best for today and then give some more whenever you're asked.
That's right.
Mr. Taylor?
Okay, yeah, I want to give a shout out to Miss Chapman and the Bright Adventures Pre-K. I think they do a great job with their pre-K children in Swain County. They do a lot of hands-on learning activities. I know back in the year they did a study on igloos, and they invited me to come and see some of their igloos. So the students led me around, and I think some of the other school board members went too, but they led us around and we got to see the igloos they had made. And then talking with Miss Chapman, she said in particular Miss Largent, who handles all the paperwork from enrollment to payroll and funding. She said Miss Largent's often the first person, the first face that our parents see when their children come to Swain County schools. So she praised her, and she also mentioned Mr. Ed. She said the children love Mr. Ed. He helps them get off, meets them when they get off the bus for the morning and helps them with that. So she mentioned all of her 19 staff personnel working together and working with our children. So give a shout out to them. And I also want to give out a shout out to Miss Karen Cook and her IT staff. They keep our schools going with the IT, and that's a big responsibility, keeping everything going. And she got me on this meeting tonight, so I thank her for that. So we got a great staff, great personnel.
Absolutely. Well, I was supposed to reach out to Mr. Kerr, and I took it on myself not to reach out to Mr. Kerr, because the person I wanted to recognize is in attendance with us tonight. And I don't want to embarrass him, but I've known him for a long time. He's a whole lot younger than me, but he's not as pretty. But he's going to be our new middle school principal, Mr. Ryan McMahon. Appreciate the work that you do. Appreciate your diligence. Appreciate your responsibility. You've always carried yourself in a very good manner that other folks would look up to and want to achieve that. And I want to say congratulations first off. I want to give you a shout out. You're certainly deserving of it. We're behind you. We're here if you need us. And good luck in your endeavors as principal.
We should not hesitate to also shout out Megan Lucas tonight, who has been named as Swain County District's Teacher of the Year. And we went ahead and announced that last week because she has paperwork that has to be completed, and I wanted to give her the summer to work on that if she wanted to. And it just so happened that Mr. Kerr, who Mitch won't talk to, I'm just giving you a hard time. Mr. Kerr was Swain County's Principal of the Year, even though he has decided to go to the dark side and work in Jackson County. We'll forgive him for that, I guess. But we're pleased with those, and we'll announce all of the rest of the recipients of the awards for maintenance and bus driver at our opening session in August. So we'll let you know what that date will be. That's going to be a really fantastic opening next year. I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Mr. White, those are all of the discussion and shout-outs, and we get to action items. Are we prepared to move forward with that?
I believe we are.
Okay. I'm going to recommend then that the Swain County Board of Education approve the contingency budget resolution as presented by Ms. Treadway.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? And for the audio record, Mr. Taylor did vote affirmative on that.
Thank you, thank you. I also recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the insurance contracts as presented. The only one that is in question at this point would be Lloyd's, correct? Cyber liability, and we need to move on that quickly because we've only got about 3 weeks to get that taken care of. So I would suggest that if we can't get something settled by the end of this week, middle of next week, that we move back to Lloyd's and we get a tentative approval from the board. Is that acceptable? Okay, okay. And so I'm going to recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the insurance contracts with the exception of Lloyd's, giving Ms. Trey the opportunity to look at some standard carriers, but we've got to get that taken care of by the middle of next week, okay?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? It's unanimous.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the copier lease as presented by Ms. Treadway with the conditions that she stated as well.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Vote is unanimous.
I recommend Swain County Board of Education approve the budget amendments as presented by Ms. Treadway just a few minutes ago.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimous.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the CTE annual plan as presented by Ms. Sneed. If you want to see the full plan, it's online. I'd be happy to get you the link. Be prepared to spend some time.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimous.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve the consent agenda, which includes all of the personnel for tonight and all of the open and closed session minutes for May 8th and May 24th.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Passes unanimous.
We will post those personnel decisions tomorrow or the next day at the latest on our webpage so that people will know what you just acted on as a point of being open.
Yes.
Okay? That takes care of all of the action items. You can see the calendar of events. There are more camps going on this summer than I can remember. Maybe I just don't have a good memory, but there are certainly a lot. July 4th will be a holiday. That's a Tuesday. All of our 12-month employees will work 8 hours a day, 8-hour days on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week. Need for you to put June the 28th. I have 5 p.m. down as a meeting time for that. That is our end of the year closeout meeting. It is imperative that we meet. The timing can be flexible on that day to a point, but I know that many of us have obligations that evening as well. So is 5 p.m. acceptable for all of you?
Yes.
Our next regular called meeting would be July the 10th. And I would like for us to have a special called work session somewhere between July 3rd and 7th. I know that's right around the 4th. We don't have to, are you going to be in town? Lisa's going to be out
I
of
wasn't
town.
going to be, but I can be if I need to.
Well, we can move it. I would just like for us, it's going to be difficult to do it the last week of June. We could put it in the first part of that. How about if I poll you all and see what you can do? I just want us to get those policies in place, and in order to do that, we have to have a first reading and a second reading before August, okay? So let me reach out to you and see what we can do on that, okay? You need to take less vacations, Lisa, I'm just saying. And you'll see that there are some transfers that are from one school to the other. Those don't take approval. We can do that as long as they're staying within the financial boundaries that are there. Do you see any reason to go into a closed session tonight for safety or anything else? We forgot one thing, and that was the addition by Mr. McKinney, and I apologize
That's
for
fine.
that.
I wouldn't want to let you forget. I've got a resolution on them. Did you get them, do they have to have a copy of that?
I gave them a copy of
Okay.
RL. I sent to you a copy of the resolution by email. Did you get that?
I did get it. I have it. I'm
Okay.
looking at it.
Thank you.
Okay. I found a copy of that from a district downstate, and what they sent to Raleigh. And then I also found that Buncombe County and other school districts are doing the same thing. And it's a positive look at something, but it's telling the legislators that we would prefer that they stick with the House plan. And you can see the difference. On the House plan, their increase is like 4.5%. I mean, the Senate plan is 4.5% for 2 years. With a teacher, I think, making over 14 years, isn't it? I believe after 14 years, it's $200.
It's limited, it's very limited.
It's just it's minimum. The House plan, however, is about twice the amount, their money they want to spend on education, with a minimum increase of 7.5% for school employees, 10.2 for teachers over 2 years, bringing back master's pay, and a 9.5% boost in salary for bus drivers. And we can't go wrong in that. And I think it would be good for us to adopt this as a resolution that we send to the leaders in Raleigh saying, please go with the House plan. Any comments or questions, or do you agree? Or
Any thoughts?
I mean, if I was talking to Jerry about it earlier, if the worst case scenario is they look at it and say no, then the status quo is the same and nothing's hurt, nothing's gained. The only thing that you do have to be worried about is sending stuff to the General Assembly is will it come back as something someone will use later. But if it's literally just to read it and say no and slide it back, then I don't see an issue with it. Just don't want to upset the feelings to the purse.
I think if all the districts would do that, I think they would be hearing from elected leaders in their counties and schools. They're saying, we need this. Because in talking to some of these folks, we got people trying to find jobs and we don't have applicants. And nobody wants to go into the teaching field anymore. And it's mainly because they don't get the respect and the pay. And respect does come with some pay. And we can't do anything locally because we don't get any local budget for that.
You were looking at me a minute ago, Mr. White, for guidance on that, particularly, I think, particularly about how will it be perceived if we send this. And I cannot answer that question. I can tell you that in the Senate, there is a strong power base that makes these decisions. And the next vote will be after the conference is completed between the House and the Senate. The conference, isn't that what it's called, Stephanie? The conference where they come to a consensus or what's the word I want? Starts with a C.
Compromise.
Compromise, that's it. And there will be an up or down vote on that, one way or the other. There will be no discussion. I'd be pleased to send this to the leadership of the two bodies. I'd be pleased to send this to the appropriation committees of the two bodies. I'm going to send a letter requesting that they fully fund what we're asking for as small as small schools funding, because the House included all of the requests that we sent in as a collaborative group. The Senate, not even close. And that's money that we need to operate as a small school system, okay? And I've been asked to do that. If you want for me to send this to the same people, I would be happy to. I don't think that there will be any pushback, but I don't know that for a fact. Okay?
Just out of curiosity, how effective is sending these resolutions, and is there any harm in it, or, but I guess how effective do you usually see?
I'd say the effectiveness will depend on how many they get sent.
Yes. I cannot answer that question.
Right, no, not necessarily for this, but I guess just for resolutions in general, is that kind of just how?
I cannot answer that question. I believe as public officials that it would be reasonable for each of you to reach out to our local legislators and ask them that very question: how effective is this? I believe that it would be beneficial for us to talk to Senator Corbin about this. And I know that since this would in particular support the House bill, that Representative Clampett would be in favor, okay? But it wouldn't hurt asking him as well. If you would like for me to try to get in touch with them, I would be pleased to. I know that Mr. Clampett will take my call right now. Mr. Corbin is or Senator Corbin is awfully busy. He has a big district. But I would be pleased to if you want me to do that for you. Would you like
Sure,
for me to, or do you want to call me?
I'll let you. You set it up for me.
Okay. I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you.
And then I will get back with all of you by email as to the response, okay? So the move is up to you all as the board. Do you want to support this resolution, or would you prefer to take a different tactic? It's your call.
Yeah, I
Nothing-
move, we move forward with supporting the resolution.
A second. If you were looking for a vote.
Well, it would need a vote because it is a resolution.
Right.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor by show of hands? It's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. White, you will need to sign that, and then I will sign it as the attestator. Is that how you say that?
It works.
Okay. I believe that's all of the business, sir, unless you just want to stay later.
Move to adjourn.
Make
I'll
that
move.
motion. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, stand and adjourn. All right.
You do.